record button. All right, so welcome to the Residents to Preserve Public Housing. If you are just joining us for the first time, the Residents to Preserve Public Housing is a citywide resident-led group of public housing resident leaders, including members of not just citywide council of presidents. We aim to preserve public housing by advocating for adequate funding, improving the quality of services, and of course, increasing resident decision-making authority. The Residents to Preserve Public Housing started last year directly in response to NYCHA's Blueprint for Change proposal. After careful review, after conversations with the chairman, the residents came together and decided that this was not a good plan for the residents, and we are actively organizing to stop this plan from being implemented. We are against the Blueprint for Change proposal because, one, the Blueprint for Change proposal was developed without the input and approval of current NYCHA residents stipulated by HUD 964 regulations. Two, the drastic changes that were proposed by the Blueprint was introduced during COVID-19 when we still can't safely communicate the facts and information and details of this plan to NYCHA residents. The trust will generate private debt using our homes as collateral and making our homes vulnerable to foreclosure. And finally, if this plan is approved, in combination with RAD, the Rental Assistance Demonstration Program, or PAC, Permanently Affordable Commitment Together, if those two programs are combined, there will be no more public housing in New York City. In other words, every single NYCHA apartment will be converted from Section 9 to Section 8. But before we go in deeper, I am excited because we have one of our elected officials here, one of our advocates within the Assembly. I don't know, I can't even do justice in giving introduction, but all the way from Queens and here to talk NYCHA with us. Without further ado, I give you Assemblywoman Frontus. Please don't mess with that right.
Thank you so.
Oh.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you for that very warm introduction, Marquise. I am so excited to be here. I am Assemblywoman Mathylde Frontus, or Mathylde Frontus, depending on who you ask. I represent the 46th Assembly District, which is actually in Southern Brooklyn. I represent Coney Island, Bay Ridge, Dyker Heights, etc. And the part of my district that is concerned with NYCHA is the Coney Island community, which I'm sure everyone has heard of Coney Island because of our iconic boardwalk and amusement area. So in Coney Island, I represent 9 NYCHA developments. Those developments comprise about 40 buildings. Some of our developments have 1 building, and we have one called Graves and Houses, which has 15 buildings. So I have been fighting alongside tenant leaders in Coney Island for a long time, much longer than I've been in the Assembly. I've only been an Assemblywoman for 3 years. I've been elected twice, once in 2018, and I got reelected in 2020. So I'm in my 3rd year now as a public official, but well before then, I was a known community organizer, a young person organizing in my community. I ran multiple nonprofits, and I would always stand side to side, shoulder to shoulder with my TA presidents. Whenever I ran a lot of my youth programs, I would run them in the NYCHA community centers going back as early as 2007. I ran my first youth 8-week program for the youth of Graves and Houses. I ran programs at Marlboro Houses. So I have a long connection. A few weeks ago, I'd say about 2 weeks ago, I held a press conference. It was on the news that night, and all the major networks carried it. I had a press conference at Coney Island Houses. Some of you may have seen us on the news that night, because the residents there were fed up. They were fed up because they hadn't had heat, hot water, and some apartments hadn't even had running water.
Wow.
For a couple of weeks, and they were getting the runaround. They would call, they would be told, we're looking into it. It was just a lot of runaround that they were getting. I came down there, we tried to go to the management office, we didn't get much luck. And then we all agreed that we would do a press conference. NYCHA's comment that day was, we're not aware of any heat or hot water outages, but if anyone has a problem, to let us know, to submit their ticket numbers. And I have to tell you, I don't know how the residents there hold their head up every day, because it's so infuriating. Like, I feel it in my bones. It's a lot of bureaucratic talk. You know, they're always like, oh, put in a ticket number. Oh, did you call it in? You know, as if that's like some sort of magic solution. Of course, people are calling it in. Of course, they're getting a ticket number. If that were to solve the problems, then it would have solved the problem a long time ago. All it does is accumulate, and you have households with dozens of ticket numbers. So like, that's not really the solution. But they won't, even me as an elected official, when I call, they're like, assembly member, what's the ticket number? What's the, you know, and I give it to them, and it's a lot of back and forth. But I want to thank residents to preserve public housing. I see Joel Kupferman here, who also invited me here. Forgot to give him a shout out. Attorney Joel Kupferman, who I know is here in the struggle and an ally with everybody. I also want to give a shout out to anybody who may be here from Coney Island. I sent a quick invitation to some of my tenant leaders, and I think I saw one of them a couple of minutes ago. I think she's here. Is that Felita?
Yes.
Okay, we got Felita Jackson here. I see Ann Valdez. I'm seeing a couple of people from my district. Felita Jackson is with Surf 4 and 5 in the West End of Coney Island, where we live. I see Ann Valdez, who is really a community organizer, well known in Coney Island. She's at Graves and Houses. Just want to say hello to both ladies. So Marquise, if there's something specific, because I don't want to go on and on. I mean, I wanted just to talk a little bit about what I'm doing, and then I'll stop and kind of let you go back to leading. But where we are now, I'll say, is that something hit me the other day after we had the rally, the press conference at Coney Island Houses. And I went back to my office and I was talking with my staff. I said, you know, this can't be about one development. We got to think bigger. And we were irate. The way that NYCHA released that statement to the media, as if the people of Coney Island Houses were crazy and didn't know what they were talking about. They were like, oh, we don't know what's going on. We're not aware of any problems. I was just, you know, completely enraged. And I said to my staff, you know, let's do a comprehensive survey to really provide a snapshot in terms of what's going on here on the peninsula. And so what I wanted to share with you today, Marquise, which is sort of like the first time I'm sharing this publicly, is we're in the process of doing that. We created a Google survey. Felita and Ann are here. They could talk about the survey if they've had a chance to look at it, if they filled it out, or if they sent it to any of their tenants. I sent the survey to all of my my tenant leaders and tenant association members. I said, please get this out to your members. The purpose of the Google survey is to get a quick snapshot of what are the most urgent and pressing needs across the peninsula right now. How many people are without cooking gas? If I had to rank the problems, I would say the first one is cooking gas, because there are people who haven't had cooking gas for about 8 months. The next one is heat and hot water, and as you know, we live right by the beach, so that's just tough. It's tough when our residents don't have heat and hot water because it's very cold. And the fourth one is running water. Those are the top four. So we've already reached out to a legal organization. And, you know, you have a couple of members here or there who might have attorneys, but to tell you the truth, what we're doing is trying to see if we can get the residents to work together to possibly work with this legal organization to provide them with some free legal representation. That's kind of where we are. I see someone on the Zoom, but I don't know if that's Loretta Brumfield. It doesn't say that's her name, but that person looks like Loretta. Maybe that's not her. I guess if it was, she would have, no, it's not Loretta, but so that's kind of where we are. My office is kind of serving, oh, Maria's here, Maria Navarro, but I don't see her, but I see her.
I don't
Oh,
have
I
the
see.
video on. I don't have the
Maria,
video on.
yeah, she's also at Graves and Houses. Hi, Maria. So
Hi,
that's
hon.
kind of where we are. We're collecting data as we speak. We're getting a quick snapshot of who doesn't have cooking gas, heat, hot water, and running water. And then we're going to give all those tenants information to the legal aid. I'm working with some specific people who have sued NYCHA before. And that's kind of how we're going to deal with this, because it's gone on too far.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna open it up so we can just be a part of this conversation. You all know how it is. If you are able to, just raise your hand. I'm gonna pick your hands in the order which you come. Be mindful that our Assemblywoman has another Zoom after this, so she won't be here all day. So please make your questions or comments as quickly as possible so we can get as many people in as possible. If you do not know how to raise your hand, I will pause every now and then to give you an opportunity to just directly come off mute and speak. The hands are already flowing, Assemblywoman. So
It's fine. I'm here until 4. I'm good in terms of time. I have a good chunk of time left, certainly enough to answer some questions. So.
Okay, we like to make sure we leave you a few minutes for some closing remarks. So just give me a heads up so I can make sure you have the time.
Sure.
All right, let's start with the individual, our attorney, the one who always shows up, who is the most zealous attorney I know, Mr. Joe Kufferman.
Thank you very much. Hold on one second. Thank you, Assemblywoman, for coming on. It's been an honor. I've been working with you. We're beating back the bad guys on other fronts. So it's good to have you here. My question is, the blueprint going through the Assembly and the Senate, how can we stop it? In some ways, how can we offer you support? And who should we focus, on?
Yes.
And also, which strategy should we use?
I'm sorry, I didn't even talk about that. I was starting with Coney Island and I forgot to touch on the blueprint. So let me say a little bit about the blueprint. Maybe some of the other questions are about that as well. The short version of the blueprint is that as a sitting member of the legislature, I have to hold my head for this one because NYCHA gives me a headache. As a member of the legislature, they convened us, myself and my colleagues, into a meeting. They briefed us on the blueprint and we sat there, we listened. I can tell you that for a lot of myself, I don't want to mention any names because my colleagues can speak for themselves, but we were sitting there kind of like making a lot of facial gestures, like, and they're like, so can we get your support? This is only going to be successful if you guys convince your residents of this. And how can we get you guys to get your residents on board about this? And I'll tell you the truth, like I said to them, I can't make my residents get on board about this or anything because they are real human beings that are having real lived experiences. And it would frankly be disrespectful if I told them, look, I know you're having problems. I know they're not fixing your ticket orders. I know that you don't have heat or hot water. I know you don't have cooking gas, but can you get behind this plan? It doesn't work that way. And we told them the truth. Many of the members that were on those briefings said, you guys have a trust problem. Like, you can't just wish it away and act like it doesn't exist. The people don't trust you. You can bang your head over the head and say, this is not a plan to take away public housing. The RAD program is not bad. Public housing is still going to remain public. But you're saying that on one hand, but then you're closing out tickets for projects that you're not really doing. And it's just like any relationship you have in life. If you keep lying to people and you don't tell them the truth, you don't do right by them, people won't trust you. That's just the bottom line. They're the top of the list of the worst landlords in New York City. And every year they make the top of the list. They're closing out work orders for projects that are not being done. Children are getting lead poisoning. People are wearing 2 or 3 layers of clothing to go to sleep in my district. They don't have heat. People can't cook. They have a little hot plate and they can't eat with dignity. And now you want people to come and believe that you're looking out for them, and you say, don't worry, trust us. Those are the worst words to say, trust us. It's like people don't trust you. So that's kind of, Joel said, how do we fight it? Well, we're at a good point now, right? Because the city's about to change hands and we don't know what's waiting around the corner. We don't know if the same leadership is going to remain. We don't know if the mayor is going to have new leadership. But I'll tell you the truth, with new leadership comes new opportunities to sit at the table, to revisit everything, because there's new people in charge. And NYCHA residents are the one that have to lead this movement. It's not about me and don't look to politicians. It's about people that are being affected. The people have to speak and say what they want. And we fight it by putting your words on paper, saying what you want and don't want, speaking to the leadership, sitting down with the new mayor. We have a new mayor coming, and that's a new opportunity to revisit this whole thing.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna go with the stat, but you said something that really hit home, and it's that piece around trust. And you're absolutely right. There is a huge trust issue, but it goes even beyond that trust. Right now, we have far surpassed the fact that we simply can't trust them. It is at the point where it's now criminal. But even with looking at NYCHA, and we are constantly doing everything we can to hold NYCHA accountable, the other side of the coin that we're struggling with is our elected officials. Now we have a handful of like true advocates who are in there busting their butts and fighting hard to make sure we have what we need. But it's the same question, right? How do we hold our elected officials accountable? Because we're here because the state, the city, and the federal government hasn't provided the adequate resources, right? And so, for example, the state only gave about $233 million to public housing this year. How do we get the state to allocate the necessary funding for public housing?
Marquise, do you want to take more questions, or you want me to answer them one by one?
Yeah, we're gonna answer one by one and kind of keep it in a conversation flow. Mr. Hall is gonna be our next person to ask questions, but you can
No problem. So I'm sorry, can you say the actual question again?
Sure. How do we hold the state accountable and pushing them to fund public housing adequately? They gave us 233 million this year. We should be seeing billions out of the state.
I was just about to say, we did that 230 million this year. Marquise and everyone else on the Zoom, I can tell you, I feel sometimes it's hard talking because we have like these private meetings, in the assembly. But what I can tell you from the bottom of my heart, that we have some fighters, we have some real serious allies, NYCHA allies in the assembly, and I'm proud of that. When I joined, there were already people there at the forefront who were defending the honor of all of you and defending the honor of the people, and they weren't trying to hear it. See, other people are kind of, they can kind of go with things, but there's a couple people, and everybody here knows who those people are. They're vocal, they speak out, they have the interest of the people at heart, and they have been fighting. And when I came, I found people that were already, on the ground. We asked for more money. The answer that we're told all the time is that we can't take responsibility 100% for NYCHA. It's kind of like a passing the buck. Like we're told, well, it's not, we're going to do the best we can, but everybody has to pitch in, the city has to pitch in, the state has to pitch in. NYCHA is one of those rare birds where it's kind of like, nobody wants it to fall on their lap. It's like a hot potato, if you ever saw that hot potato game, you know, and everyone's tossing it to someone else. So if you speak to the feds, they're like, oh, what about the state? You speak to the state said, oh, what about the feds or the city, and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, we don't have enough money for NYCHA. I personally, I'm a little biased because I'm a state legislature. We get our funding from the feds, to be completely honest. You know, where does our money come from? The state of New York has its own money. That's true when the governor passes its budget. But yes, of course, a lot of the funding that we need for public housing and other things, it does come from the federal government. Hence why there's that kind of little tugging that goes on, you know, and it's like, okay, we got to get it from them. We got, you know, robbing Peter to pay Paul, as the expression goes. And the city also has a role to play in this as well. So I think the question is, what can people do? Do more of what you've been doing, which is speak up and ask for more. Let the speaker hear you, like let the leadership hear you. We know that you need more money. And if you go to YouTube and you listen to some of the speeches on the House of the Assembly, people have been saying that. I mean, there many of my colleagues come to mind. I don't want to, again, speak for them, but I'm thinking of some of my colleagues who have gone on and made these big speeches saying, this is nothing, you know, we need 3 or 4 times more than that. But we don't have that control. We can ask for it. But at the end of the day, when the negotiations are being done, we're still left with, we're not getting the full amount that we would need from the feds, Marquise.
Thank you. I have Mr. Robert Hall next.
All right, thank you, Marquise. Assemblywoman, I really want to thank you for what you just said. And the reason I'm going to say that is this. We are developing an action plan with regards to the situation as a whole. You've just given us the ammunition that we really needed, or we really want to cement. We knew of this, but you kind of solidified it by what you just said. So I really want to thank you exactly for what you just said. It's very, very important. I'm saying that because I'm from way up in the Bronx, but Carl Hasty is my assemblyman, and you already said what we need to know. So that being said, I also saw something on the chat from someone from Gravesend.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to know more about, you know, the blueprint and knowledge and the goings on. And the one thing I wanted to state on this call, come to these Zooms. These Zooms on Sunday. Make this part of your entourage because you can only learn. That's what we're trying to do. I know very little about Gravesend. I do remember sitting across from a lady, Felicia, someone from Unity. All right.
Oh, Wanda Feliciano.
Go. All right. I used to sit across from her, and I learned about Coney Island from her. She was on the resident advisory board. But the idea is to network. Okay. So I hope the people on this call continue coming every Sunday. There is no dumb question or answer because we all help each other. And you just tremendously helped us in what we plan to do as we go forward. So I really want to thank you for what you just what we plan to do. Okay, so thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. And everything has to be put in writing. Listen, I do a lot of organizing in Coney Island. Some of the people on this Zoom know that. As Joel said, we're fighting many fights back here. We're fighting a lot of fights. Sometimes I feel like Spider-Man, you know, we're doing different things. But the truth is, this group, your group, has the power of your voice and the pen. Having these meetings every week is good. Organize, but then put your thoughts in writing. Do an op-ed, do a letter, send a letter to the White House under the name of this group. Send a letter to the Speaker of the Assembly and the Majority Leader of the Senate. Send a letter to the Mayor and to the new Speaker of City Hall. So I just gave you a couple of names of people who need to get a copy of a letter from you saying what NYCHA residents want. Because when you don't speak for yourself, what happens is other people speak for you. And sometimes they're dishonest. And they'll say, oh, the residents have no problem. The residents love this. You know, I hate when people say that. And then it's like, it's not true. So.
Okay. All right, thank you
We-
very
We have definitely been fighting that battle. So you're right on the money. I'm going to move us back to Manhattan to Miss Beverly McFarland.
Yes, good evening. How are you today? And welcome, and thank you for coming. But
Thank you.
I sit on the Quality Assurance Roundtable for NYCHA as and also I attend every bi-weekly meetings with the KPI, which a lot of resident leaders should know about, which is the Key Performance Indicator Department Division in NYCHA. Now, everything that you're saying as far as closing tickets out and then not doing the work, they have a database that's supposed to pick record all of these ticket numbers, how often the ticket numbers have, how many tickets, outstanding tickets per development, and how many tickets are being expedited, the timeline of the expediting, and if these ticket numbers are being closed without without it being expedited, then that's why I've been complaining at these meetings, because I'm saying if you're putting garbage in, you're not recording the correct information, and this information is supposed to be recorded to the Federal Monitor. And so they're giving the Federal Monitor false information, because if you're closing tickets without
That's right.
if you're closing these tickets without expediting them, then you're lying to the oh God, because I'm trying to, it's too much stuff going on in my apartment right now. Okay, you're lying to the Federal Monitor about making sure these tickets are being expedited. So my thing is, I wanted to say to all of my resident leaders, you have to get on these meetings with NYCHA when they're saying that they doing expediting ticket numbers and they are doing better, and lying to the Federal Monitor about doing better, because they're not. They're not. They're putting incorrect information in the system for this key performance indicators. And I've been fighting for the last maybe 6 months, saying that the information is that they putting in the system for the Federal Monitor is incorrect. Because in my development, I have proven to them that like 20 tickets that they said that they have expedited, the tickets was closed by the workers, and then they had to resubmit those tickets. So that's why I had to do over here in Taft, I had to do a HP action in order for me to get an additional boiler, because it wasn't the heat. The two boilers that we have on premise, I have 9 buildings, but the 2 boilers that they have here wasn't supporting, it wasn't enough support to heat the whole development. So we put in an HP action. I put in a HP action on behalf of the whole development, and NYCHA had to put an additional boiler in this development. Now we are getting so much heat, but of course I'm just opening my windows. I'm not complaining. But that's what it took in order for me to get an HP action through the court in order to get my residents additional heat. So, we have to fight on the level, just like you said, with lawyers. And secondly, I know I'm also a quality assurance. This is a quality of life of all these developments. I also have 5 developments in my portfolio. I will be reaching out, because we also have surveys, Johnson houses, I think Jackie Robinson, Jefferson. I will be reaching out to those tenant leaders, because we do have a survey of performance of, once the maintenance workers come in your house, how are they performing when they get in there? Are they polite? are they using the right materials? Or did it expedite it on to your, likings? So I will be reaching out to a lot of your developments in East Harlem to provide y'all resident leaders with these surveys.
Thank you. Yes, Assemblywoman, if
That's a great point.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, please.
If your survey is still active, we definitely would love to share it with residents. So please share it with me, and I'll be sure to get it out. I'm gonna keep. I'm sorry. You wanted to say something in response?
No, I was just gonna thank Beverly for her comments. Those were right on. And that's essentially what I was trying to say. We have to be a step ahead. And right now we have to just be honest. I tell people, deal with things as they are, not as you want them to be. I don't want it to be this way, but the reality is, NYCHA has been caught over and over again saying projects are done when they're not, giving information to the feds saying that they did work, which didn't happen. If that's what's going on, as Ms. McFarland says, then that's why we have to be a step ahead of the game. I see someone else from Coney Island. I'm seeing people in the chat, but I'm not, why? Because it's 2 pages. I'm missing some of the, let me see who else is here. I see Connie Jones, also want to give her a shout out from Coney Island. She's with Site 8. In Coney Island, I'm sure like in other neighborhoods, some of the buildings have affectionate names. So Site 8, they have other nicknames for it, but want to welcome her here and all of the other NYCHA leaders that I see on the Zoom.
Thank you. Yes, please. I see Ann Vadez, who I am also, she's just my sweetheart. Ann, what you got to say? You're on mute, Ann.
Yeah. How you doing? Well, I want to say hello to you, Marquise, first of all. And I see that there's quite a few people on the Zoom now that I am familiar with. What I wanted to mention was that Maria Navarro and I have been working on several different issues here in NYCHA. We just had an election, so we're waiting for the official results. And we've gone and we've spoken with many residents about the issues that are happening here in our development and other developments. And like Maria was trying to mention, is that our TA president that we had and the vice president never formally had a meeting explaining to people what RAD and PAC and Blueprint and even the one that we originally started with was when they were building, taking down community centers and building luxury buildings on NYCHA property. So a lot of people here are not familiar with what's really happening. And of course, they don't know what to do. And I do tell people always get involved, speak up. But like you said, we're working right now to try to unify our development and then connect with other developments, because I'm also, and Maria, we are both familiar with some of our other TA presidents. So we're trying to make this as inclusive as possible so that more people can sign on. And yes, I'm very familiar with Joel as well. And Joel and I went way back at the beginning of COVID. We were trying to get NYCHA and the issues of how people in NYCHA are affected by COVID. So we've been trying to do all this, and I really appreciate that you guys managed to get it all together on one space so we can have people to come into it. And yes, I appreciate our Assemblywoman Mathylde. I appreciate you very much with putting out the survey, because NYCHA just recently had a survey that they wanted residents to put up, to answer, like they were going to do something about it, but they had a limited time for that. Their survey was literally only a few weeks. Okay, and I'm sure most residents didn't bother getting into it because they don't understand these things. So as I'm saying, I'm going to try and be as involved in this Zoom on a regular basis. It's just that like Mathylde mentioned, we here are involved in so many different things that we're constantly having meetings, Zoom, or, our own little meetings together with other groups and with new elected officials. And so much is going on that we can't always make every meeting, but we try.
Well,
Okay, so I will be trying to do that.
I'm definitely glad you're here. It is full circle.
And I'm also going to get in touch with CVH and see what they're doing about NYCHA so that, we can make it more inclusive as well.
Absolutely. And thank you. It's great having you here. I'm going to keep us on stack because we got a couple of heads. So I'm going to go to Mr. Johnny Rivera, followed by Ms. Ethel Velez.
Hi, good evening. I'm an ally of NYCHA, having been a former resident of Wagner Houses in East Harlem. And I know Ms. Velez, so I'm looking forward to her remarks. I want to commend the Assemblywoman for taking time out of her schedule to be present and to talk about utilizing the legal service route. I work for Brooklyn A, and if you need any assistance, we can also help, because the law firms, the nonprofit law firms, only have so much of capacity. But I think all developments should be going that route. And something that I'm not hearing from the tenant leadership is the organizing of tenants. I think you are too polite with NYCHA. And NYCHA has proven to you that NYCHA will lie, will cheat, and will hurt you. And yet all of you, almost all of you, are very polite to NYCHA. And what I would like to see, and of course, who am I to say this, but we need to discuss it. We need to have a group of people at 120 or 150 Broadway, 250 Broadway. There needs to be a lot more signs of protest. NYCHA residents citywide are kind of quiet. And yet, because I come to these meetings on Sundays, I hear how active many of you are. You are very respectful of the system, but the system is set up to screw you, and you are mighty nice. And I wish you wasn't. I wish you would organize more tenants to come out, not for meetings, but for protests, because the city needs to hear the protests that the tenants are taking. And then you will see many more electeds coming on board and speaking out and being in favor. But until then, having meetings with NYCHA does not seem to be the answer. And I don't mean for you to be rude and disrespectful, but lives are at stake here, and you're forced into this situation. So anyway, thought I'd share that comment and also offer the services to the Assemblywoman. I'm in Red Hook, Brooklyn, with the NYCHA, and we are at least 2 legal service entities, because again, legal service entity can only do so much, but your voices organized in a strong way is much more powerful than any legal service, any elected official, any group of people that are meeting behind the scenes. It is just the most powerful force, and is yet one of the least utilized. Thank you.
Oh my goodness, Marquise, I just want to quickly respond, because Mr. Rivera hit it right on the head. It's an age-old truth, which is never wrong. It can never steer us wrong. The only thing that ever worked in the past, and the only thing that works now, is people power. You know, Coney Island, I'm blessed to be in a community with a lot of civic-minded people, like some of the people on this Zoom, We are a very civically engaged peninsula. We have a lot of projects that we're always battling. You may have noticed we were in the New York Times just last week, where Ms. Valdez and the people on the Zoom, they were standing with me because we've been protesting some environmental harm that the city's doing. So here's what I want to say to what Mr. Rivera is saying. There's a time and a place for everything. These meetings are very important. These are organizing meetings. If you ask the people on the Zoom in my neighborhood, we have sometimes 4 meetings a week. We're always meeting about something because we're organizers. So these meetings, you know, people in the struggle have to meet so that you can plan and know what your next move is and organize. But on top of all the meeting, you also, part of your organizing efforts have to know when are you going to step out, show your strength, speak your voice, and then go back to your meetings. So that means an op-ed. That means an open letter to the mayor, an open letter to the CEO of NYCHA. That means having a direct action in front of 250 Broadway, wherever the headquarters are. Then you go back to organizing. You assess how effective was that, did that work, and you keep moving on. But it can't just be meeting all year, just as Mr. Rivera says. You have to take some direct actions, either in speaking up, protesting, etc. So I just want to double what he said. I agree.
I agree, and we're going to be talking about some action that we're going to be taking. So I hope that you will sort of add some more of your critique and recommendations in the next conversation when we wrap up our conversation with the Assemblywoman. Keeping us moving, I have Ms. Ethel Velez.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Assembly person. And Johnny Rivera, I really do appreciate what you said because it's absolutely true. So I won't even repeat that. But what I do think we're at the point now is that we need to, Marquise, we did a information page that we gave out to residents. I think it's time to do that again, to do an updated information page so people know what's going on. COVID has stopped a lot of stuff. COVID has put fear into people's hearts about being with people, gatherings, and all of that. So we have to keep the information going so that people know. Some people know, but they don't have all the details. I would love to have many more meetings that I have, but I can't. I mean, utilizing the space, a whole lot of things, and our outside meetings just didn't work well. So we need to get an information page, something very simple, but to give people details of what's going on. I would really like to say, we are talking about the blueprint in a small way. Greg Russ has continuously moved forward as if the plan has been approved. I would say to Beverly, the problems you had in your development helped me with the situation of them trying to give us New Orleans. And because of everything you went through, I was going to make sure my development wasn't going through. And I think Marquise, in saying that, is that we need to have a time in these meetings that we can share what is going on, because they are pushing, she's got part of the blueprint. They're not calling it the blueprint, but that's what it is. All of the stuff that they're doing in my development is part of the blueprint. If you've read the transformation plan, all of this stuff is in it. They are moving forward regardless. My comment on funds. If you go to any of the hearings that they have in Housing Authority, one of the things that the city council is always asking them is why, if they give them money, 5, 6 years have passed and they still haven't spent their money. It's not about the problem that we don't have no money. So, we need to really forget that. That's not the deal. They have money. It's what they do with the money and when they do with it. The last hearing on November 18th, I think it was, the city council, some of them guys were saying they were pulling their money back because they'd held on to their money for so many years. This is about privatization. This is Robert Moses too, eliminating communities. We have built communities, we've been staples in the communities, and now this is the last property and they want it. They want it. So I think we do have to make noise, and maybe we need to come up with another strategy on how do we make noise with our elected officials. so that they know we're there. I mean, you know, how do we get their phone numbers out and just keep calling them until just say, even if you don't say hello, don't pass the blueprint. You know, we have to come up with something different to get on their nerves because we're not getting on their nerves. We've gotten on a few people's nerves, but we do have to have another strategy. But we have to get the information out to our residents. It is just so important. And we need that point of sharing stuff. So what we can share, because when I heard Beverly talk about the stuff that was going on in her development, by the time they came to me, I questioned what was going on there. And so they're starting us off with what they're giving her now. But if we don't share what they're doing to each one of us, that's that divide and conquer stuff. So we have to have a time that we share information about what's going on in our developments. It's very important. That's it. Thank y'all.
Marquise, this is so good. I hope you have someone taking notes because these are all things that you guys have to do. Call your assembly and state senators, tell them that you're against the RAD plan, ask them, are they communicating your dissatisfaction to NYCHA? I'm hearing a lot of good things in this meeting, but it's like a to-do list. So I hope we're putting together a to-do list based on all these comments.
Thank you. And absolutely, you guys are all teeing it up. We're going to have a conversation. We are going to Albany to do all of those things, to turn it up a notch. We have a date on January 18th. So we're definitely going to talk more about that. As it relates to sharing information, Ms. Ethel, you know, we do happy hour after every meeting. So our meetings go from 3 to 5. And then from 5 to 6, we have happy hour where there's no filter, right? We take the recording button off and we share. There's no limit to what it is that we share. And that is a perfect place, I think, where we can begin to sort of share best practices or share experiences to help us navigate what's going on in our respective developments.
I'm so sorry. Does this group, Residents to Preserve Public Housing, do you have a website?
We don't. We are what you see. We are a bunch of TA presidents and residents with absolutely no funding. In fact, we set up a GoFundMe for our trip to Albany. But we do have an online presence through our Facebook and Twitter account. Okay.
I was thinking that as long as you have some branding presence online, if it's not a web page, at least a Facebook page at a minimum. And wherever you have your online presence, if it's your Facebook page, I would upload the plan. I see people in this chat asking for the plan. Even me, I realize I need to do a little bit better too. I can have a meeting on Zoom with NYCHA residents in Coney Island to present the plan to them. But before I do that, I'll email all my tenant leaders and ask them to start sharing it with their residents. So, but I would like to see something where Residents for Public Housing uploads the plan for NYCHA residents to read online. So then if we send it to people in Coney Island, it's coming from you guys, and then you can add your commentary. Like if you had a website, you would say, here is the plan. And then you would say, we are against the plan or whatever it is. So that way, as Anna and I and other people on the Zoom are sending it to residents, they're seeing the plan, but in the context of what your organization stands for.
Thank you. I will definitely start working on that. I think that's good advice. And for those who are still asking about the work plan, not the work plan, the blueprint plan. I will dedicate some time towards the end, perhaps in our happy hour, to go over some of the more details of the plan. But very, very quickly, and I'm going to keep us on stack. The blueprint, in short, is, and what's happening is not just as we have a $40 billion deficit. They don't believe that we're going to receive that money from the federal, state, and federal government. So they've created a plan that is similar to RAD, but not RAD. Essentially, what they want to do is they want to create a new housing entity called the Public Housing Preservation Trust. That they have to do through state law. If they are successful in getting this new Public Housing Preservation Trust, they then have to ask HUD for permission to transfer over 110,000 NYCHA units into this trust. That was part of the original proposal. The last piece of legislation for the trust only mentioned 25 with the ability to add in an additional 25 after review. If the state gives them the Public Housing Preservation Trust, if HUD allows NYCHA to transfer over those units, and doing that transfer, they will be doing two things. One, they will be switching from Section 9 funding, that's public housing, into the Section 8 funding stream using tenant protection vouchers. One thing that the Housing Authority cannot do that the Public Housing Preservation Trust will be able to do is borrow money from private lenders, right? So that's the second thing. What they want to do is they want to take the funds, the tenant protection vouchers, they want to use those and our buildings as collateral to go to banks and borrow more money to take on private debt. And that is one of the things that we are most fearful of, because as we know, the government has not been funding public housing adequately. In this scenario of the blueprint, if the government doesn't fund Section 8 adequately, we're now also dealing with the fact that this new entity has private debt and risk of foreclosure. We can go into foreclosure if the Housing Authority or the Preservation Trust doesn't pay back the loan. So we're giving up a lot in the interest of cosmetic fixes. And we've seen that just through examples of how they've been managing the rental assistance demonstration program buildings. So I will again go into more details. We do have a presentation. I will also say, Assemblywoman, that we would love to partner with you and the leaders in Coney Island to do a full-on presentation. 2 weeks ago, we had two young ladies here from the Movement School who did a presentation on the history of public housing. So I was talking about all the debt, how we got into where we are now with all the debts and with all the mismanagement, etc. So please stay for happy hour if you want to learn more about the details of the blueprint. In the interest of time, because I know our Assemblywoman has to go, I'm going to try to squeeze in 3 more people. And I'm going to take you all the way to Staten Island with Kiko. Miss Kiko, you have the floor.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you, Marquise. Good afternoon to everyone. My statement is probably coming in a little late because most people have already touched on it, such as Mr. Rivera and Ms. Velez. But I wanted to ask the Assemblywoman, and good afternoon to you, ma'am, and thank you for being here. The statement was made that, NYCHA tells us a bunch of lies, and this is something that we know is factual. And even though we've had a monitor that was supposed to be here to assist us as residents, and I'm finding that the monitor can be a liar as well. Okay, when NYCHA lies to the feds, who are we supposed to go to have them be an overseer for HUD, who's listening to lies and not listening to CCOP, RRPH, and residents of public housing? We, the people who actually live day to day with the environments that we're living in. Who can we reach out to? I do understand you said write a letter to the mayor. I do understand you said write a letter to the president. But is there someone that you know personally in your circle that may want to spend time listening to us?
Yeah, I mean, Ms. Kiko, thank you for that comment. As you were talking, I was having like flashbacks of, the previous.
What? I'm sorry, I'm on the ferry. That please excuse the language. I'm not responsible for the people.
I think Marquise is speaking, but Marquise, you're on mute, so we don't hear you.
Yes, I'm sorry, Kiko. I'm going to just mute you so we can get a response because I know you're on the bus.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I was thinking of what happened with the unfortunate situation with the young woman who was the CEO of NYCHA, Lola Sola.
Shola.
Yes. Before we had Mr. Russ, and there were a lot of problems and there were a lot of investigations. New York City, out of all the cities across our union, is a city that is adept in doing investigations. We have a very formidable Attorney General's office. We have Department of Investigation. We have some of the savviest journalists that the world has to offer, who do stories about, literally like last week, there was a big piece in the city that came out about falsification of documents. I hope everybody here on the Zoom saw that, and how it cost the life. Well, I shouldn't say the life, but it's really affected the health of Black and Brown children who are now suffering with a lot of debilitating illnesses. A lot of times when people are being, reckless and lazy or whatever, it's not for me to say why they're doing that, and they're lying on a piece of paper. People think that, when you're lying on a piece of paper that there's no victims, but it's not true. If you lie on a form and you say that you visited an apartment and you really didn't visit it, that can actually lead to someone's death, because by you saying you visited it, that means there's no real person to check out the mold, to check out the issues that's going on, to check out the brown water, and somebody's health can be negatively impacted by that. And so is there one particular person that comes to mind? I mean, that's something I could probably talk to Joel about when we get off the Zoom, but I would think that we already have that. There are watchdog groups where all they do is watch what NYCHA do. They've exposed what they do over and over again, but it's still standing. It's not like it's been disbanded. It's not like there's been a court that's ordered them to stop operating. Like, they continue to do it, even though all of the evidence comes out and says what they're doing. But I do think that residents have to, going back to Mr. Rivera's point, residents have to document what is going on. If we had a movement across the city of New York where development by development was coming together and saying, we are going to shout to the world what's happening in our development, because a lot of these atrocities are happening in the dark. We don't know about these developments that haven't had cooking gas for 8 months. We kind of talk in these organizing meetings, but that has to be made public. And to tell you the truth, I've spoken to a lot of people, like, they will come every week, whether it's someone like Monica Morales on Channel 11, a lot of these news stations. If you call them every week, they will come every week to show what's going on, because they want to expose this stuff.
Okay, and my second statement was, I understand the importance of mobilization, and I understand that we have had rallies in the past. Is there anyone that can make a suggestion on how to really get the residents to take this very seriously, to want to come in on a Zoom, even if you're not able to go to a brick and mortar? You should be willing to get on a Zoom and hear what's going on. At some time or another, hold on, I'm outside and I'm muffling myself. At some time or another, you have watched television. You have heard someone make a conversation about the possibility of privatization. How can we really get our residents to mobilize and show up at these rallies? Myself here on Staten Island, the board members, and even some of the residents have spoken to others and made suggestions that you show up, even if you don't speak. You may have persons like yourself, or Ms. McFarland, or Mr. Hall, or Ms. Velez, or Marquise, or Ramona to be the spokespersons, but we need your physical bodies there, because the more numbers that show up, the more they seriously will take us, okay? When people do not come out, when they do not come out until the 11th hour, what is it going to take for 10 or 15 or 20 developments to be privatized, for people to actually grasp that this is serious? As Ms. Velez said, Mr. Russ is moving forward as if he has not a care in the world. And our residents have to understand this. And if they don't share with you that they're going through problems and you have to wait to hear it on the news, whose fault is that? We have to communicate with one another. Sometimes residents do not reach out to their resident associations. Sometimes they prefer to sit on the bench and have their own private conversations. They choose not to get involved until it's too late And then it falls on persons like RPPH, Section 9, Section 8. I mean, we
Right.
all have to play a part in this. We all have to be responsible for this.
That's
We
right.
can't just lay it on one person. Mr. Rivera said, we are too kind. Well, when I'm speaking from the heart, I'm told that I shouldn't speak like that because I'm a president and I should be more understanding. But I have to meet you where you are.
That's
Don't
right.
come to me at 11:45, damn it, when the shit is getting ready to fall down at 12 o'clock. Especially if I came to you 5 days ago at 2 p.m. in the afternoon.
That's right, Ms. Kiko.
I mean, what do we do? How do we do this?
Right.
Everyone wants to blame the resident association, but what about the people that live here?
That's right.
They need to participate.
That's right,
You can't have 50 people. How many is on this call today? 41 people. You cannot expect 41 people to run a city. You've got to want to be a part of. If you got a new paint job or a new stove, so what? Maybe in 4 years, your stuff will fall down. So why not step up and help the people that are in need? We're all living in the same life.
Ms. Kiko.
Let's all band together.
Ms.
I'm sorry for screaming, but
no.
I just get very excited and I get emotional about this.
No.
Because I'm tired of people not wanting to step up and wanting to leave it just on a few people. It's not fair.
Right. Let me get, because I know that the Assemblywoman needs to go to another Zoom. So
thank you for your time, ma'am.
Thank you, Kiko. I'm gonna ask you guys to get through it, and then we'll ask the Assemblywoman to respond in her closing remarks. So let me go to Ms. Teresa Scott, followed by Ms. Claudia Perez.
Hi, this is Teresa Scott. I live in Redfern Houses, and the same thing that the young lady was saying is that as I'm the correspondent secretary, and as the correspondent secretary, we didn't have any heat or hot water maybe like a couple of weeks ago. And I was up until 11, 12 o'clock begging people to put in tickets, and it kind of, devastated me because I was like, why would you want to, be freezing? We did get our Assemblywoman, our Assembly person, and our Councilwoman, they did get involved. But like the young lady said, is that, but I'm not a person that can go out and do these things. But if I can make some phone calls, something like that, because I have a wheelchair. So if the places that y'all might go is not accessible, or I'm not able to get to a restroom, I have to be honest, I can't get to a restaurant, then that's a problem for me to be out in the cold. The other thing that I want to say is that you can create a link tree, and you don't have to have a website, but you can create a link tree. It comes with a link, and you can put whatever information that you want inside the link tree. And then people can just drop the link tree wherever that you want the NYCHA resident thing. But my problem was that there are a lot of seniors that are in my building who don't have access to computer, that don't know how to use a computer. So how would those residents get information like we're getting, because we're on Zoom? And some of them, their minds say, I can't do it. It's hard. They can even they can hardly use their phone sometimes. So how does that how does that population get addressed? And I'm complete.
Thank you. I'll let the Assemblywoman respond after Ms. Claudia Perez. But RPPH works directly with the TAs. There are a ton of TA presidents, and what we do is I will actually go down to the development to an in-person meeting where we're sharing all of this information in person. We also provide Zoom trainings, right, to different TAs who are in need of some training. Miss Cassandra Boland is one of my prize students who I always bug on here, right, to get it done. So let's talk more about that, Ms. Scott, because I'd love to sort of implement your idea. I think it'd be incredibly helpful as an alternative to not having our website. Ms. Claudia Perez, you put your hand on. Do you still have a question or comment?
I'm sorry. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm kind of hoarse today. But I just want the Assemblywoman to realize, how can we support you in gathering your colleagues? Because today, I don't know if anybody saw in the news over this weekend, Manchin has single-handedly killed the bill. as far as the Build Back Better plan, so as it's looking, that money is further away than closer, if it's even going to come to public housing. So that's my question to you. Like, how would you get your colleagues? Because the last stance that we have for this blueprint to be stopped, because in a lot of our communities, we know that the Congress and people on the state level, as far as the senatorial level, are with the blueprint, specifically in East Harlem. Our last stand is at the Assembly. So it's very important for us to gather as many allies in the Assembly that is against the blueprint. For far too long, yes, we need to organize and we need to show up, but for far too long, we have showed up at these single places and we have gotten the same results. So we have to be more strategic in where and how we organize. Maybe we might have to do phone banking, phone calls, and pop-ups where it's more than one site that we're popping up on. One of the things also, we know these bankers who are funding these contracts, and we know the people who are funneling money into our system of nature. We need to start causing a ruckus over there by their properties. And I mean, when I say ruckus, I mean, we just need to show up and let them know that your money is supporting the killing of Black and brown people, and I'm just going to end it there because the rest of my colleagues have, given you a lot, but that's just something that I wanted to put out there.
Thank
Absolutely. And I want to say, first of all, this meeting was so important. I'm so happy that I was here. My heart is so full. This is exactly the kind of organizing that I think is effective and will lead to movement. There's a couple of things we have to do, but I'm gonna have to have maybe like a call with Marquise and maybe Joel, just so that we can organize. What I need though is, I'm happy to reach out to some of my Assembly colleagues, but specifically to Claudia's question, there is no substitute for old-fashioned calling and emailing, putting a letter in the mail to your elected official. I get goosebumps all the time. I've been writing my elected official since I was a teenager in high school. I know, I was taught that if I have something to say, I have to sit down in my computer, I have to write a letter. I remember being in high school writing a letter to like Hillary Clinton. I wrote a letter to all of my elected officials. And now that I'm an adult and I myself am an elected official, I get hundreds of emails a day from people telling me one thing or the other. They want me to vote for this. They don't want me to vote for that. I get letters in the mail. I get calls to my office. That's what everybody here has to do. People all around New York City are doing that as we speak. So you have to call your elected officials, every single one of them, your city, your state, your assembly, state senator, your congress member, and register your complaint. It is, we have to literally register. If I get like 100 emails, people telling me that they're against the RAD plan, I have to document that. So your voice is very, very important. People have to speak up and be known.
Thank you. I just want to remind us, right? Like, yes, we come here faithfully every Sunday. And it can seem like not much is getting done, but I remind you that blueprint is not implemented today because of the action we have taken. If it were for the New York City Housing Authority and the Assembly who introduced this legislation last year in December, they would have passed it if it were not for us going to hearings, rallies, protests, writing letters to the chairman. So you are absolutely right. We got a long road ahead of us. We still got a lot more work to do. We still got to continue to hold NYCHA accountable. But at the end of the day, we need to work with our elected officials and we need to hold our elected officials accountable. Mr. Ross is aiming to raise $40 billion with his Blueprint for Change proposal in a 10-year time. Now, your colleagues have mentioned, Assemblywoman, that we can put all of this on the state. And we don't intend to put it all on the state. But what we are saying is the federal government can give us $2 billion every year. The state can give us $2 billion every year. And the city can give us $2 billion every year. If each level of government played their role over a 10-year period, that is $60 billion that we can raise without compromising our rights and protections that fall under the 964 regulations, and also without putting our homes in jeopardy of foreclosure. When they built public housing, they restricted them from taking on loan for a reason. And we need to recognize that. We need to continue to hold on to those protections. So I'm definitely asking to work with you hand in hand as we go to Albany to ask our elected officials directly for more funding. We know that you serve on the chair of the Black, Puerto Rican, Hispanic, Latino caucus. That is a very powerful voice. We love for them as a body to get behind us and saying no to the blueprint and saying yes to $2 billion every year. And then finally, the other piece that we're asking for is residents know it best. Residents know best. The residents who have been on these calls, believe it or not, they manage their developments, right? They manage every aspect of their development. And some of them are prepared to be managers. And so there is a program that allows residents to become managers of their development, managers of different aspects of operations at their development. They simply need more training and the resources to do that. So we're also asking for funding to support resident management engagement opportunities. So with that, I definitely want to thank you. I am always excited to know that we have an ally in the elected official. It is always great to have that ally be a former organizer because she gets it. You understand the work that we're doing, and we welcome you to come back anytime. And the residents you brought with you, this is home for public housing residents. So please don't be a stranger. And with that, I leave you with your final words.
Thank you so much. Again, this was really, really a great meeting. And I want to say, Marquise, don't wait until you go to Albany. You know, think of this as a campaign. Those of us who are on the ground and organizing for one project or another, you have to always see your work as a multi-level campaign, meaning that there are small steps to take and there are big steps to take. It's almost like when healthcare professionals sit down and they say, how are we going to reduce X in the population? How do we get less teenagers to smoke? How do we get less people with diabetes? How do we take on these big issues in our community? Sometimes they come up with 10-year plans. There are things you do today. There are things you need to do every week. There are things you do monthly. There are things you do yearly. So it's a lot of different steps. So going to Albany is important, but there are things, what can you do today, right? What can you start doing tomorrow? So you need an online presence. You need a place where people could read your thoughts. The average NYCHA resident, do they know about Residents to Preserve Public Housing? How can they find you? How will they know what you believe? Have you organized a 5-borough meeting on Zoom where you're bringing in tenant leaders and organizers from across the city so that we can have a town hall? Have you guys had a Residents to Preserve? You're saying yes, excellent. And so is there another one planned? We don't know. Are you going to do a borough tour? Maybe kind of take the show on the road and do it, one for each borough or what have you. But there's so many things you could do. At a minimum, everyone on the Zoom, starting tomorrow is Monday, needs to pick up the phone, call their legislators, and record their concerns. Those get documented in the official record keeping. Send an email to your city council member who they're on their way out. They have 2 weeks left in office. So you could start with your assembly member, your state senator, and your congressional representative. Send them a message and let them know that you are against the plan. And then everything else will fall into place. But the point is to start speaking up. Organize a rally in front of the headquarters of NYCHA before it gets too cold and before there's snow on the ground. And I'm sure you'll get a lot of people to come out to that.
Thank you so much. Stay as long as you can. We're going to now transition right into talking about Albany. Speaking of which, so Ms.
Take
Beverly,
care, everyone.
thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, let me go back into gallery view. All right, Miss Beverly, I see you with your hand up. Forgive me, because if that was for the Assemblywoman, we were on stolen time already.
Okay, well, I was just gonna make a comment. Maybe we should organize a day of rage to all the development, everyone doing it at the same time in each development, instead of trying to get to one place, each development on the same day, the same time, and call all the media out and showing that we are in some, together and fighting for this, fighting for against Blueprint for Change. Just an idea.
I'm definitely down for that. It's all about capacity. Y'all know we struggle with capacity because it's me and it's you guys, and you guys all are running your developments. So we just have to put together a small committee so that we're all taking on a little bit of the weight to make sure that these things are possible. But I just don't, I don't want us to leave here with the notion that we're not doing enough. Can we do more? Absolutely. But we have been kicking butt. We have been growing, right? People all over the city, they may not know what the blueprint is, but we are forcing NYCHA and the residents to begin to have conversations about the blueprint. So we got work to do, and we need everyone to just step up. So if you think we need to do a specific action, this is your group. I get the luxury of facilitating, but the group belongs to each and every one of you. And so the way we operate is we take your ideas from here, we take them to the steering committee, and we figure out how we can make it happen. More could get done, and folks say, I am willing to take on leadership for this action, for this campaign, for this letter writing stuff. It's all about taking ownership of this group. It belongs to everyone here. Right. And as I always say, you all know it, with every great idea comes great responsibility. So I'm gonna leave it there. Ms. Beverly, your hands up again.
Yeah, I know this is off topic, but it's just something that I was very passionate about because I read it and I sent it to you. The assembly, and when we talk about assembly bills, it's another assembly bill that's going up in January, A416. I think everyone needs to read that, because this bill would allow the governor to imprison anyone without trial if she considers them as public threat, as a public health threat. That means if you're not vaccinated or anything, they can incriminate you and put you in jail without trial. So we need to kill that bill. And please, people, look at that bill while we fighting legislation, and assembly is up, the Assembly Bill 416. I'm sorry to go off topic.
No, it's not off topic. Thank you. But we should also dedicate some more time, because that definitely scares me in a number of different ways. So one, I want to see if you have the ability to pull it up and maybe share the link. If not, as soon as I stop speaking,
I sent it to you on I've sent it to you on WhatsApp.
Okay, so I'm gonna go into WhatsApp and look for it and then share it as soon as I do this quick pitch.
Yes, this is Teresa. I just want to tell you something. I'm a disability advocate, and what we did is that everybody had the same, like the lady said, the day of rage. Everybody had the same talking points, and we all we call the Capitol, and we shut down the Capitol because we said they were trying to block out funding, and everybody had like certain times that we called, and they had so many calls that they made sure that we passed. So maybe we could do something like that. It's like we all get the same talking points, and we all make the same calls. Like say I call, say reference calls at 3 o'clock, y'all call at 3:30, whatever. But if everybody can call at the same time, because that's the kind of stuff that lets people know, even if you can't get to a rally, just shutting down offices where they cannot communicate, because they do not like that. And when we shut down office, it was like, nope, y'all getting your money. But not only did we shut down, but we actually, I went to Washington. I had the pleasure of going to Washington, and we went far, way far. But some people laid in front of the buildings to knock stuff down. I'm not saying people could do that now, but that's the kind of stuff that we did to pass these disability advocate bills and stuff. So they are in place right now. So we have to get abreast, like that young lady said about the Day of Rage. And you also can create a blog on WordPress.com. You can create a blog. So I would love to work with you, Mr. Marquise, and assist you with setting up the link tree as well as the WordPress. So this way, if people want to blog on WordPress.com, then all the NYCHA people that are in NYCHA, they could just put their, their issues and have it as a blog. So it will help people understand, hey, I'm suffering like you, you're suffering like me. But then this way we can send that blog to legislators to let people know, hey, these are NYCHA residents talking about the issues. So that's another way you can get information out also too.
Hey, thank you. And thank you for volunteering to help, because I'm gonna keep saying that it doesn't move if we don't have anyone to move it. So great responsibility. I'm gonna send you my contact information so we can schedule a one-on-one so that we can begin to talk about it. Or if there's anybody interested in helping to form an action committee, definitely put some information in the chat so that we can set up our first committee meeting and begin to talk about what some actions could look like. Starting with our action to Albany. So as you know, last Sunday, we announced that we are going up to Albany on January 18th. Why are we going to Albany? For all the reasons that we talked about today, but more specifically, for 3 reasons. One, we want to kill the blueprint. So the state will be returning back to Albany in January to discuss legislation. And we believe that the blueprint will be one of the topics that they discuss. So we want to make sure that we kill the blueprint. Number 2, we also know that the state is going to be determining the budget pretty soon. And so conversations are starting as soon as January. The budget will be finalized or approved sometime in March and April. So again, we want to make sure that we're asking the state to add $2 billion to public housing as a line item so that we get it every year. And then we ask for another $1 billion for resident management engagement opportunities. The third reason, right, and this is what gives us a little bit of our leverage, if you will, is that state elections are coming up. So the governor is looking for re-election, the assembly members are looking to be re-elected, and state senators are looking to be re-elected. Including the author of the Blueprint for Change proposal, Senator Brian Kavanagh, who is the chair of the Housing Committee within the state Senate. So for all of those 3 reasons, we believe it is a prime time for us to go to Albany, show some forces. What are we going to do when we go to Albany? So 3 things. 1, we are going to have meetings with specific legislators, and I'll show you the list. 2, we are going out there to do some teachings. So many of you might have been here 2 weeks ago where we had the movement school do a history presentation on the history of public housing and how we got to the funding crisis and management crisis that we're in today. We're going to be trying to partner with them to do that same presentation up in Albany and try to get as many elected officials or state representatives to that meeting as possible. Because as you would imagine, many of them don't know public housing and don't know the history of public housing. And third, we want to do some type of action, direct action. It might be something as simple as a press conference that we do in partnership with some of our elected officials, or it can be something a little bit more radical. We are putting together a planning committee that is going to have the first meeting next week on Tuesday during our steering committee meeting. If you are interested in helping us plan the trip to Albany, let me know. I'm gonna put my contact information in the chat. Just reach out via text or email to let me know you want to be a part of it, and I will send you the steering committee Zoom link so that you can join us in our planning process. Just so you know, we're going a second time. This is more of an educational time for us to go. So you heard me talk to the Assemblywoman about Caucus Weekend. Caucus Weekend is led by the Black, Puerto Rican, Hispanic, and Asian caucus. They meet every year to discuss various topics that impact Black, Puerto Rican, Hispanic, and Asian residents in this city and in this state. And so what we want to do is we want to go up there again to put some emphasis on what we were calling for on January 18th. So the caucus weekend is happening. I do need you guys to save the date, especially my tenant association presidents. This is January 18th, excuse me, February 18th through the 20th. We want to get as much residents up there as possible. And if you have the resources, you have the TPA funds, now is the time to be putting out applications to see if you can rent a bus to get as many residents up to Albany in February as well. The details of February are still being worked out. Among the things we are aiming to do is be a part of the actual program. So we will be submitting a proposal request that again will be this history of NYCHA presentation. So there's two opportunities for us to go to Albany. We really want to make sure we get, if we can get a ton of residents up in Albany on January 18th, we want to double the numbers, the number of people we take to Albany during caucus weekend, February 18th to the 20th. That's a lot. Let me pause there to see if there's some comments or some questions. I can't see, so feel free to come off mute if you want to comment.
Marquise, do you have a template for the TPA? We discussed that.
Thank you. That is perfect. So yes, I am working with a number of TAs whom are on this call to put together a template. Tenant participation funds was used in the past to go to this conference. This conference happens every year. So what we are doing is we're looking at the proposals that were created and approved last year as a template to create the proposals for this year. So on Tuesday, the steering committee will meet and we'll get a determination on where we are with that template. If it is ready, my hope is that it could be ready for next Sunday, if not sooner. So by next Sunday, I will definitely have a solid update for you. If not, already tell you that there is a template. If there's a template created, then you'll get an announcement in the email.
Okay, thank you.
Are we staying for all 3 days? That's what you're saying, the 18th to the 20th?
No, I think, or at least our program or our list of things we want to do, I'm gonna sort of minimize it for a day. So like if there's any big actions, mobilizations that we want to do, I'm gonna keep it to 1 day because I know many of our residents, probably including myself, won't have the capacity or the resources to stay for 3 days.
Is there some way we can incorporate that stay in our TPA funding? That way we can get at least some of our members to stay up there. That's something I think you guys can look into.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think that we should, Claudia, you should ask your coordinator and just tell them that you want to go there. I think one of the biggest challenges is getting a bus. That's a really big challenge as well, especially if you're going to be dealing with TPA money.
Yep, so that's another piece. We'll have some information. We have one of our TAs from the Bronx has a bus company that has been used in the past. It is a female Black woman-owned bus company. So we're reaching out to them to get some quotes. If you have a bus company that is friendly to public housing residents that you have used and that you vouch for, please send it to me. We are now in the process of pricing buses to go up there.
Okay, because I know that we've used amazing destinations in the past, and sometimes the bus companies have to be approved by NYCHA, to avoid that. I think we need to look into previous bus companies because that might be a stop hold. Because if they're not vendors of NYCHA, they try to like uphold the money or
Yeah.
even doing business with them. But Amazing Destinations is one of them that's already approved by NYCHA.
Thank you.
This is Ms. Scott. Is it possible that y'all could, that we could ask the councilman or the assembly people to help fund some of these things? Because I know Senator Sanders out here in Far Rockaway, he used to fund, he used to have trips going up to the Black Caucus. But I wasn't really able to get on because the buses are not handicap accessible. So I do know that he did take some of the NYCHA presidents with him. I don't know if they stayed for how long, but there is a lot of funding out here. It's just that I'm a grant fund. I find grants. Let me say that. So maybe I can assist y'all with for this particular thing. It is my business, but we need to be up there, and we might be able to get some fund. We might be able to get a fund that could cover some for some people to stay, because when you're dealing with legislative stuff, you might be eligible for some funds. Like I was looking for a fund today, and I found a lot of funds. I was like, "Dang, there's a lot of money out here." But
Yeah,
because
listen, I don't know if any of the steering committees are thinking the same thing I'm thinking in my head, but I'd love for you to join us on Tuesday. For our steering committee. Yeah.
What time Tuesday? Because I have different appointments on Tuesday. So let me know the time. This way I can set my calendar to work with y'all, because I wouldn't mind assisting y'all, because there's a lot of stuff out here. Like I was just looking at a fund that New York State actually gives people, but no one. I've looked at funds. I've never seen this fund. So we possibly could get some fund to do a lot of stuff that we need to do. Because it's out there and it's available for us, that New York State actually offered for us.
All right, well, let's talk, because we definitely need some funding to support it. I saw Miss Beverly here, and I think Cassandra and Miss
Marquise. Marquise. I want to say one thing. Claudia was right. We should try to reach out to vendors. They go much faster, and try to get a bus and try to get them to pay for certain things. And we should reach out to our council people to feed us, but the vendors, we should be looking out to them to push it faster.
I can get y'all all the food y'all need. Don't worry about that. Y'all probably just have to get some like cases of water. I could cover the food.
A word? All right.
Who said that?
Miss Claudia. Like, listen.
All right, that takes care of food. That makes me happy. All right, let's get
Yeah.
Miss Beverly in, because she's been patiently waiting.
I was just piggyback off what everyone else was saying. We should be able to, because 2 years ago we all some went to New Orleans, some went to Florida. So we will be, if they can give us sponsor plane tickets, they can get a bus. I mean, I don't think that would be a problem. And then some of us that still have cosmetic funds, that's discretionary funds that can be used on, renting a bus. So I know that's the funds I'm going to use for January. So as far as the TPA, if it's been funded before, we should be able to go up there for the weekend. Why short our stuff? This is very important.
Absolutely. And I'm coming back to you, Johnny. Are you still with us, Johnny? I'm gonna stop sharing just so we can see each other's faces. Here we go. Johnny,
Yeah.
I'm putting you on the spot because you mentioned we need to like turn it up a notch. So give me some of your ideas of how we might be able to take it up a notch, perhaps maybe in Albany.
My thinking was, door knocking to find out who's upset with the conditions of NYCHA and use the basis of anger and frustration to invite people to do things, take action. That was my initial thinking. And that there has to be constant action, not by the same people, but by different developments, maybe at the same location, 250 Broadway, and this be disruptive, disrupt the business of NYCHA, at least once a week or thereabouts.
Well, they're no longer at 250 Broadway. Some of them have moved to 90 Church, some of them in the Bronx. So they operational is not just in 250 anymore.
So
Okay.
one really cool idea that we might be able to partner with Save Section 9 is just recently Save Section 9, and I'm going to share some of the photos and flyers, but they did a visual at Mitchell houses to sort of recognize how many developments we're losing under Section 9. And I think perhaps maybe that's something we might be able to replicate at different developments, or even at 90 Church Street. We can go there. I think there's a number of smaller events that we might be able to do to kind of build up some more excitement and participation leading up to our Albany trip. Again, it's just a matter of who can help us coordinate some of these actions. So, for example, if someone wants to lead a weekly action, I'm happy to work with whomever, but it's hard for me to coordinate both a weekly action and Sunday meetings.
I think we should have a day of rage. I mean, where every development is doing their own action. We all organizing. Each of us be responsible. The resident leaders is responsible, or the resident leaders that's on the call will do their own development. That would be a great idea.
Yes, I agree. If we can get their numbers, if we can get the different locations of the NYCHA people, we can actually call their offices and shut their lines down so they can't get calls in. That's the thing that I was.
We should have it in front of all of our resident and management offices. We should,
Well, we've done that in the past. We've done that and it was very successful. So I think that we can do it again, and we do it while we're doing more than one action, because some other folks might be going to the different politicians' office, or we might be going to the NYCHA buildings. There's more than one place that we can go to, even if we go to the management office, because everybody has a management office in their district other than their manager's office. So there's a lot of things, and I think we need to talk about it and write it all up, Marquise, because everybody's going to have to help. It's not just one person who's going to have to be able to do that. Everybody's going to have to really participate. So that's something that has to be worked on, and we have to write it up and just disseminate it out to folks and ask them to participate.
Yeah, I mean, for some reason, Martin Luther King Day is coming up as maybe a symbolic day that we can do something. But let me bring Mercedes into the conversation.
Sounds good.
Hi, everyone. Just so everyone knows, all the Senate offices are still working remotely. If they are in the office, usually it's just one person in there. So and if this was pre-COVID, I would say definitely do the actions in front of the offices. But what would still work, I think, in this situation would be contacting their offices, like the phone calls and the emails, like flooding it would be more effective in our situation right now. Because I know the emails that our office has been getting, I have been informing State Senator Mike Gianaris, just so that he continues to be aware. And I even informed him that you guys are doing an action in Albany, so that he is aware of that, because he just so I think that would be more prudent for that and be more effective with the time that you have and the people that you have.
I said, "Is you gonna kill me?" Because my sister was calling me as you said that last piece.
It's okay. I'm not. No. Listen, we're all my kids in the background. So if you hear my kid, I apologize. So don't worry about it. Just don't. Do you need me to repeat it? I was just
the last piece instead
sure.
of doing. Yeah.
Just the semantics that most of the, from what I know, especially in Queens, and I believe most of the Senate offices are running the same way. They're all still working remotely. Many of them are open limited, like maybe one staff member is in there. So I don't want you to pull bodies and do demonstrations in front of their offices. That might not be effective use of time. What would be most effective is actually calling their offices and flooding the emails, like the Assemblywoman was speaking before. Because I'm telling you, the Section 9 emails I'm getting and the emails from constituents from NYCHA that I'm getting from Queensbridge, Astoria Houses, and Ravenswood, State Senator Mike Gianaris has been like, okay, so just keep letting me know how many people are still contacting you. So that's been effective. And I know it's been effective for him. So I know it's going to be effective across the board. So that would be, I think, a better use of the time when it comes to the state senators. And I've also informed him that you guys are doing the action. So because he is the primary person for the Democratic Party for the state, you know, that's buzzing in people's ears already. So just letting you know.
Teresa, you hear that, right? We got some homework. We're gonna do these calls.
I'm ready to do that, as far as, because I feel like if we call the Queensborough office, like each person calls their borough office, that'd be a place that we can call. Like if Staten Island, you call the borough office for Staten Island for NYCHA. So each person will call their borough and just flood them. We will call, because the more calls we make or the more emails we send, the more that they see. Because like one of the things too, what I saw is that when we didn't have cold, we didn't have no heat. For some reason, the thing was canceling our tickets. And so, you know, even that's a different subject. So I think by calling our legislators will help us with a lot of it. And I know it's all talk, but I'm just saying to it that sometimes NYCHA people are not getting, but if we're calling, like my councilman is Savinia Brooks. So if I get a whole bunch of people to call Savinia's office, my senator is Senator Sanders, my assembly is Assembly Khalil. So like bombarding all our legislators with emails and calls, then I really do believe that we can get, you know, an answer. And just everyone just has, you know, we don't want, like, just simple. We don't want blueprint. We don't want PAC, whatever, not PAC, whatever the other one, RAD. We don't want that. And we want to keep Section 9. Like just simple little words. It's like, it's not really a whole lot of stuff. We just got to create something simple. So I'm terrible when it comes to, well, my computer's not working right now, so I couldn't create a letter.
Don't worry, don't worry. I'm gonna be meeting with you. I do love the idea. I think that a combination, right, if we glue all these ideas together, right, I think we could really have an impact, right? One thing that we really have to emphasize, right, and if you disagree, speak now and forever hold your peace. But one thing we have to start emphasizing now is that we want state funding, right? We can't allow them to say, well, the federal, the city, or the state is not going to give us the money. That's why we're going to go with the blueprint. No, this is not an excuse to relieve them of their job. So when we are calling the elected officials, we got to be pushing state funding. So $2 billion is the number that we are now using for capital and operating on a state level. And then we're asking for another $1 billion for resident management opportunities. Ms. Beverly?
Yes, we have to really push that NYCHA spend the money that is coming. 6% of the money is unacceptable that we have been spending when we are in the condition that we are in. So we have to push, more importantly, that NYCHA push this money out. How everyone is operating with 66% and NYCHA is only allocating 6%. So how can you keep putting money in something if they're not getting it out? And I agree with the other state, you know, the state officials, city officials saying they're not gonna, you know, they pulling their money out. Because how are they holding on to money 7 years and 8 years and 9 years? I mean, really, first of all, we need a forensic audit. And where is the money? Somebody should have been, the ass should have been in jail.
That's
so
right.
something is wrong.
That's right. But the city, right? The city and the mayor plays a significant role in holding the chairman accountable and determining who the chairman is going to be, right? So we still, for me, right, it still falls back on our elected officials, right? You can't go to the chairman and say you're doing a horrible job and not hold them accountable. Like they have the ability, the authority, and the responsibility to hold Gregory Ross accountable. So yes, it is unacceptable for them to only be spending 6%. But I can't let city council get away with saying, okay, because you're doing that, I'm not going to give you the money. That is just an easy way out for them.
And I agree. I absolutely agree. But we have to put the foot to someone, the fire to someone's foot, and tell them, come up off our damn money.
Mercedes, your hand up again?
Yeah, Marquise.
Marquise, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Ronnie.
Okay. Let Ronald hop and talk. I'll talk after him.
Peace and grace, everyone. Hello, RPPH and committees, allies, everyone, friends, neighbors, relatives, and associates. Welcome to this Zoom call. As listening to several things, thoughts were going through my head, and I'm just going to share some of those thoughts with you all to try to figure out better ways of how we can continue our mission. One of the things that I'll start with protesting, because I've heard a lot of that today. And I had mentioned something pertaining to the young lady in Brooklyn who received the lead paint and so forth, and sent the stories out and so forth. So that's still on top of priority that I have. One of the things what we can do when you're going to do a day of action or a day of rage, we were pretty successful. We just needed more foot soldiers out there with us, like Kiko said earlier in her comments and so forth. We need bodies out there. Numbers matter. Okay, just like people's lives matter. That's what they respect. So if we have committees where we can have people flooding the phones, sending the emails to keep a paper trail, we just have collective body. We need a collaborated effort in this whole movement that we done, so we don't stand still like a statue and be a monument. So one of the things that we can do when you're going to do a protesting is to basically get a permit to take it to the damn streets. I did that 4 years ago up here in the Bronx. Robert Hall and some of the others were all, they attended this protest march that I did here in the Bronx. Actually, I did two. I had Sika and some allies follow me. I had a lot of great foot soldiers. We marched from my development all the way to 161st Street and right across from the Supreme Court. And I had TA presidents from across the city that I was able to contact. When I first started, people were, well, why are we doing a march? But then all of a sudden it just came together. Okay, we shut down the damn streets is where we got attention, because one side cars could not do. I had 2 precincts to escort us. And by doing so, we were able to get the bus drivers, the cab drivers, the people on the mopeds and motorcycles, all honked at us. I took those protesters through the developments that was near my development and went protesting without signs through them to wake those people up, to get them to come downstairs and join us. That's how we got attention there. Now, all of a sudden, Monica Morales and all these people got involved in us. We are the ones that control the media because we went out there with our day of action. So never forget that and keep that in mind. Secondly, on the other hand, we have to find ways of getting people more involved and pushing these elected officials to either listen for us or we run for their damn positions, okay? And we can do this. Just don't say that we can't. We have enough brilliancies on these calls and enough people. Now, these are not things that just started. Ms. Velez and them have been doing a lot of this. We've been running back and forth to Washington. We've been going to Albany. The last Albany trip, I had a bus leave my development. We went up to Albany, and then the COVID hit us. So we just have to regroup and rethink and take this a bit further and make sure that when we do this, we stand under one roof and be not divided, but under agenda. Let's get one agenda passed at a time, and then we will begin to see the successes and the fruit of our labor. I'll close with that, wishing everyone well during the holiday seasons, and let's continue to fight. Thank you all, and thank you all for your earlier comments.
Thank you. Always bringing it home. I love when you do that, Ronald. Mercedes and then Kiko, and then back to Therese.
Thank you, Marquise. Just to piggyback off of Beverly, just to make 2 points. The money that is still not being spent is city money. And I bring that up specifically because the state last session tried to pass, meaning the Democrats tried to pass 750 million towards NYCHA, which unfortunately only 350 million was passed. So I'm saying that to make the point that all money from the state government that's been given, of course, it's not even close to what is needed for NYCHA at all. But when it is given, that money is always spent and depleted. The issue is how the city money is not being spent. So there has to be better parameters for the city and the city council to come up with to be able to have that NYCHA spend that money. And of course, NYCHA didn't have anything good to say. Marquise, you and I were on that call, like I think texting each other back and forth, like just like we can't take it. So just wanted to throw that out there that please continue to push the point that you want the 2 billion from each. And if the state does give it, at least you know that money will be spent. The problem is hopefully the city could come up with better parameters for them spending the money. So just wanted to throw that out there and let people know. And please continue to call the offices, okay?
Can we ask, can the residents find out how the state spends them, how they spend the state money? Can the residents find out?
Yeah, of course.
We can find out if that exists. We can find out if that exists. In fact, I was actually working with Assemblyman Harvey Epstein to get a breakdown of how much money the state gave to public housing in the past 10 years. So I'm gonna bump up that ask to see if we can get it from him. And then Mercedes, if there's any other resource where they might show the line item.
I was gonna say I could follow up with our legislative director and find out if she knows.
That would be
she probably
great.
Does. And I could let you guys know as well, because I know for sure 350 million was passed in April because State Senator Mike Gianaris was trying to push for 750 million. He was trying to get twice the amount the state has been usually given. But unfortunately it didn't pass. Only 350 million did for April. But I could try to see if I could find out a breakdown. If not from her, then maybe the state comptroller could give us those numbers.
Okay, that would be great. That would be great.
All right, we're wrapping up right before we get to happy hour. I see hands up. I'm gonna just skip to Aisha only because Aisha hasn't spoken yet, and then I'll go back to Kiko and Teresa. Aisha,
yeah. Hi. Oh, good evening. I just wanted to wish everybody a happy holiday. I'm sorry I came late, but I had to go get tested for COVID. My nephew was positive, so that's why I'm running late. I had to go do this testing. And COVID is live and well. Also, starting tomorrow, Smith Houses, our TA room, will be a site for testing. If anybody needs to be tested, you can send them to Smith Houses, to our TA room. There'll be people on site testing people for COVID if they need to be tested for work or for whatever. And I just want to wish everybody a healthy and happy holiday and a safe one. And
same to you.
You know, and the fight continues. New Year, the new year should bring us like, we should come in swinging. I mean, swinging. I was listening to the news. We really need to move to Washington, D.C. and get on this Democrat from West Virginia, and we need to, and we need to fill his whole hall with people from public housing. Because that he's stopping our money, and he needs to know that we're not going to. And then if we have relatives in his state, we need to reach out to him so they can reach out to him and tell him, you need to stop your craziness. Anyway, once again, I wish everybody, whatever you celebrate, that you celebrate it in peace. And thank you for all your support.
Aisha, you hit something that was very, very interesting and important. And I'm sorry if I cut anyone off, but West Virginia folk, okay, let me just tell you a little bit about them. I traveled through Kentucky and I learned a lot about that area and how these politics are being played. Those people are the most economically challenged, or the other word for that we used to use poor. I use economically challenged as a choice word, as a better word, but it means basically the same thing, are the poorest in the North Hills of America, that area there, okay? And the Appalachian folk that live up in there. But let me tell you something else. They would say that we are poor, but we're not poor like the Black people. Listen, poor is poor. Economically challenged is economically challenged. Okay, so the whole thing behind the message and what I'm trying to say and bring your attention, Aisha is absolutely right. That area of concentration plays a big role in the decisions making in this country, and that's an area that needs to be focused on. I know we're from New York, but she is definitely right. Aisha, thank you so very much for bringing that point out to me, because it just opened up my head. Thank you.
Ooh, we might have to actually take our buses and go up to Virginia. I see your two hands up, but this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna officially close us out and kick us in to happy hour, and I'm gonna start with you two in happy hour. So as an official close out, I want to say thank you to everyone who showed up today, who shows up every Sunday. Special thank you to our guest speaker, Assemblywoman Frontus, for coming. Not only did she come and show up, she advocates on our behalf all the time, but she made sure that her resident from her district was also in the room. And for that, I give a definite warm welcome and hug too for being a part of this today. I will continue to reach out to the Assemblywoman to work on all of those things that we discussed today. I am definitely looking forward to going to Albany. You all know that Albany is being done on a fundraising basis. So please share this fundraiser, get it out, ask your residents if they can donate $1, whatever they can donate. Even if they can't donate, make sure that they're able to see this fundraiser, because there's a lot of good information in there that will just educate them on what is going on. Caucus weekend, we're going to be figuring out how we can get a template to each and every one of you, so you have a model that you can use to take to NYCHA to request a bus for however long and however many residents you want to take up to Albany. We are going to be working on we do have a working group that is going to be doing the planning for the Albany. So our first meeting is going to be on Tuesday. During our steering committee meeting, I am going to drop my contact information in the chat box. If you want to be a part of that planning committee, you are definitely welcome. Those folks who have some of these ideas around some counter actions like Miss Teresa Scott, love the phone banking and all of that. Those folks, those are the people I want to see, especially reach out and say that they're able to come meet with us on Tuesday. The steering committee meets Tuesday, 3 to 5 p.m. Sometimes it's just an hour, but we hold 2 hours just in case we need a little bit more time. So with that, thank you all. And let me stop recording so we could have a real conversation.